We call it the film that won't die. Quentin Tarantino says it's a perfect movie, so there you go.
It was fucking miserable. It was Texas in July.
119 degrees. I didn't think it was going to come out.
I hadn't seen it in 40 years.
It's like getting lightning in a bottle. I could cure cancer by tomorrow morning, and they would go, yeah, that's great. How'd you cut your hand?
Every August 18th, horror fans celebrate Texas Chain Saw Massacre Day. It's the date the events take place in the original 1974 film. And more than 50 years later, people still travel from around the world to visit the house where part of that horror history was made. Last October, I finally got to make that pilgrimage myself. But I didn't just get to walk through the original Texas Chain Saw Massacre house. I got to do it alongside several of the people who actually helped make the film. And what struck me while listening to their stories was that none of them knew they were making history. So for Texas Chain Saw Massacre Day, I want to take you back inside the house to hear those stories, see the iconic rooms up close, and find out how a little independent horror film made in the Texas heat became what Ed Neal calls the film that won't die. The Texas Chain Saw Massacre has terrified generations of horror fans. And there's something surreal about walking into a place you've seen on screen for years and realizing that the rooms, the doors, and the staircase are actually real. This isn't a recreation. This is the house. There's certainly a cult following for Texas Chain Saw Massacre.
We call it the film that won't die. I make Disney movies. Nobody cares it. I worked with Oliver Stone on JFK. Nobody cares it. I've done 286 Japanese animes. Nobody cares. We want to talk about Chainsaw. I could cure cancer by tomorrow morning, and they would go, yeah, that's great. How'd you cut your hand?
Why do you think people like horror so much?
It's it excites the emotions.
The adrenaline, the shock.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, when the shark's coming.
Yeah.
Most wonderful thing I ever saw in my life. The little girl, about 9 years old, eating popcorn. And about the third time the music had come on and the shark had come on, she jumped to the top of the seat, turned around backwards, was balanced on the seat, and screamed to the entire audience with her arms out like this. When that music play, he's coming. And sat back down because she wanted everybody to know. She was so in the moment. No, it was so real.
Yeah. When's the last time you watched Texas Chain Saw Massacre?
When I watch it now, it's when we'll make an appearance and they'll do a Q&A.
Okay.
And because we have to explain things that went on in the film because there was so much silly stuff going on. It was nuts because we were making up as we went.
What was the best part about making that movie?
When they said, cut, we're done. 118 degrees. Because all of these very windows were taped shut with thick black paper. Outside, the light is coming and going all day. You couldn't even open the windows to get air. You can't turn the air conditioner on.
Did you actually cut your hand?
Well, yeah, because in low-budget movie making, it'll heal. You don't have enough film to do it over. You better get it.
The Texas Chain Saw Massacre feels raw because in many ways, making it was raw. There wasn't an enormous budget or endless film for take after take. There was brutal heat, exhausting conditions, and a group of young filmmakers trying to capture something audiences had never seen before. And somehow, those limitations became part of the movie's power. Did you have fun playing the character?
I did. Because it's always fun to play crazy. Back in the day, when I first saw this movie, 1974, I took my girlfriend from high school, Lurleen. We went to the drive-in movie. And this Chainsaw movie is the only movie we ever watched. That's a compliment.
Inside the Texas Chain Massacre house, the iconic stairway that this house scared me so much as a kid. We're about to go up the stairs. This is one of those places horror fans recognize instantly. These are the stairs Sally Hardesty, played by the late Marilyn Burns, desperately runs up while trying to escape Leatherface, played by the late Gunnar Hansen. More than 50 years later, standing here still feels a little unsettling. And yes, Grandma is still hanging around. Here inside the Texas Chain Saw Massacre house with the one and only Jerry. What's your favorite part about having been in Texas Chain Saw Massacre?
Everything other than getting whacked. And the way I did it, because I wanted to have my true reaction, I had them blindfold me. So the method I used was the Stanislavski method. I had no idea what that was, but I liked the name of it. So I sat out on the porch here for like 20 minutes blindfolded. And then Tobe yelled, action. I go into the house, into the kitchen. I see the hook, the freezer. She pops out. Leatherface starts coming in. I started screaming and ran out of the house. And then Tobe yelled, cut, came over, put his arm around me, said, Alan, that's a great scream, but you got to wait for him to come into the frame.
Like
with the hammer. Yeah, exactly.
What you're getting scared of.
I was so still freaked out. It took like 3 or 4 takes. And the grips, the guys that were helping behind me, grabbed my belt loops and took me down just as that shot. He came down with the hammer.
Had you seen him in the costume at that point?
No. So I'm number 8 on all-time screams when the actor didn't know what the hell was going to happen to him.
So he terrified you.
Terrified.
You were as scared as viewers were seeing it.
I still am. And I've seen the movie a bunch of times. It still gets me.
That's part of what makes this movie so fascinating. Some of the reactions we've been watching for more than 50 years weren't created with elaborate effects. Sometimes the people in front of the camera genuinely didn't know exactly what was about to happen. And that unpredictability helped create something audiences could feel.
It was brutal. There was no air conditioning in the van. Then in the house, they had rotting bones, rotting meat. Leatherface wore that same costume for almost a month. All the Febreze in the nation couldn't get that stench out of that. But it was pretty easy for me. I just was in that house to get whacked.
How does it feel being known for this movie?
You know, how does a kid from the Bronx end up in the scariest movie of all time? Quentin Tarantino says it's a perfect movie. So there you go. Only in America.
When you guys were making the film, did you imagine you'd be ever talking to people about it to this day?
I didn't think it was going to come out. They kept changing things all the time, changing dialogue, almost running out of money. So it's unbelievable that it happened. It's like getting lightning in a bottle. And I'm just thankful. I miss some of the guys that are gone, Gunnar and Marilyn and Jim Sedow and Paul Partain.
Lightning in a bottle. Maybe that's the best way to describe it. A small group of filmmakers come together in Texas to make a movie they weren't even sure audiences would ever see. Some of them are no longer here to see what it became, but more than 50 years later, their work lives on, inside this house, on movie screens, and through generations of horror fans who continue discovering it. Why do you think people like horror so much?
I think that people like to get scared and to know that they're going to come through it. They're going to be all right.
Maybe that's part of the reason horror endures. It lets us experience fear while knowing that when the movie ends, we're going to be okay. What was your favorite part about making this movie?
It was my first film, my first feature film. I'd done student films and things. I was fascinated with how film worked, what it took to make a film, and then, of course, the family I made. In retrospect, I was supposed to be part of a family in this film, and over the years, we became a family.
None of them could have known what this movie would become. What started as a low-budget film made by a group of young artists in Texas became something they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. And somewhere along the way, the fictional family inside this house helped create a very real one outside of it.
When you guys were making this film, did y'all think it was going to become what it is today?
If we had known then, but we know now, we'd all had lawyers and agents and managers and shit like that.
What was it like making the movie?
It was fucking miserable. It was awful. It was incredibly uncomfortable hot. You know, it was Texas in July. Actually, this house was in Round Rock, and they moved it out here to Kingsland, but it was all outside of Austin. Plus, it's a huge part of my life. It's affected my life incredibly, you know, because I was only 20 years old, and it was my first film.
Are you ever surprised by how many people are interested still after all these years?
I'm always surprised. And for many, 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 many years, nobody recognized me. You'd have to really be a huge fan to know who I was. Latex makeup, I couldn't take it off. That was awful. Terrible. That was probably the last person to have to wear liquid latex.
I was the truck driver in the original Texas Chain Saw Massacre.
Everyone wants to know why you didn't just drive off.
Right.
Why go out the other side of the truck and take off?
Because, for the simple reason that trucks don't work that way. There's no way I could step on the gas, as people think of it, and go anywhere. I got it in first, and I might have moved 7 or 8 feet, and by that time he'd have opened that door, zipped the door open, and bent up my leg with that saw before I could have gotten it into...
Yeah.
I could have gotten to second. It would have been boom, 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 stalled. Yeah, no, they don't work that way.
Do you get that question a lot?
Frequently. It's one of the highest asked questions because people think, damn, you could have survived.
Well, what happens to the truck driver? Because we don't see him after...
I have a theory. My theory is, what would you do if you just killed somebody, as I had? I just hit a guy in the road.
Right.
Well, go look for the police. So, in theory, I found an old deputy sheriff down the road and told him what happened. He said, oh my God, really? Come with me. And he took me right back to him, because he was one of them.
Are you surprised by the amount of people that are still interested in this movie after all these years?
I guess I am, yes. In truth, I am, because it was such a little afterthought. I saw it at the premiere. I hadn't seen it in 40 years.
How did you get a part in it?
Bob Burns was a dear friend of mine. We were in college together. UT. We worked on the Texas Ranger magazine. That's in '62. So 10 years later, Bob knows I've got a truck, and he happens to be working on this movie, and he said, you want to bring your truck out, go rent a cattle trailer somewhere? I did, and that's it. Good guy, great. I mean, he created Grandma, he created the costumes and a lot of the stuff. I did Chainsaw 2.
Okay.
In that, I was a chili cook-off judge.
History.
That's one of the things I kept hearing again and again. Nobody knew. They didn't know they were making a movie people would still be watching more than 50 years later. They didn't know these characters would become horror icons. And they certainly didn't know that decades later, fans would travel from around the world just to walk through this house. They were simply trying to make a movie. And somehow, they made history.
What do you love scary movies?
I like all the things evil, dark, and depraved, you know what I mean?
Why do you think most people like it?
For a lot of people, it disgusts you and everything, but also intrigues you at the same time. For me, it's my happy place.
Horror movies can be cathartic.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Just like getting tattooed is therapeutic. It hurts like a motherfucker, but I mean, it's therapeutic.
I think Texas Chain Saw Massacre has been so enduring.
It's because it's so simple, it's so raw, something that could really actually happen.
Maybe that's why this house still has such a hold on horror fans. We know what happened here wasn't real, but the movie made it feel like it could be. More than 50 years later, the people who made the Texas Chain Saw Massacre are still telling these stories. New generations are still discovering it. And every August 18th, horror fans celebrate the day 5 friends took a fateful drive through Texas, and horror cinema is never quite the same. Getting to walk through this house was something I will never forget. But what stayed with me even more were the stories of the people who helped create what happened inside it. These were young filmmakers and actors working with a tiny budget, brutal conditions, and absolutely no idea that people would still be talking about what they were making more than 50 years later. And I think Alan Danziger was right. They somehow caught lightning in a bottle. Today, the Texas Chain Saw Massacre isn't just a movie people still watch. It's something people travel across the country and around the world to celebrate together. And this house is still here. The fans are still coming. The stories are still being told. And as Ed Neal said at the beginning, it's the film that won't die. Happy Texas Chainsaw Massacre Day. If you are a chainsaw fan, I want to hear from you in the comments. What is it about this movie that stayed with you? And if you believe horror can be more than just something that scares us, that it connects us, helps us process fear, and sometimes even helps us heal, subscribe and join me here on Scream Therapy TV, where horror meets healing. I'll see you next time.
Got the Scream Therapy, or else.